welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. I'm Gary Harper, state rep from Ware. This is Victoria, the Honorable Victoria Sullivan. And the Honorable Pam Tucker is with us tonight. How have you been?
I've been very well, thank you.
She always looks great, doesn't she?
She does. She's pretty awesome.
Thanks. I've had 2 years off of politics, so it's been kind of nice.
You're younger now. Oh, refreshed.
Once you get out.
I know, my hair was brown. My hair was actually brown when I first ran for office.
Was it?
Yeah?
Were you 12?
No, what was I? It was 43.
You were 43.
You were
43, not 1943.
Yeah, no, if I was...
Uh-oh.
Wait,
We're good.
was I 43? Yeah, 43. I was 43.
How long have you served? What terms? How many terms?
Well, you mean served like as in did work? Or
well,
served like as in
theoretically.
technically been in office?
technically, how many terms have you served at the State House?
New Mexico. Nice.
What?
We get a hi from New Mexico.
Oh, cool.
Sweet.
Okay, no, I got first elected in 2000.
Okay, so you've been here for quite some
A long
time.
time. You'd think I would have,
Given up by now.
yeah.
It's going to be a
smartened up
tough
by now. It's going to be
session, 2 years
no,
for you.
it's not that bad. I've been in the minority before. It's not that
Okay,
bad. You
this is
just
my-
kind of sit there and throw rocks when you can, hand grenades into rooms
Rocks,
and walk
paper.
away and laugh and.
I don't think that it's going to be the same for you, and I will tell you why.
Okay, but first we got to talk. I just had, a spiritual thing is something you've heard before, I'm sure. One really good thing to do is do something for somebody without telling anybody.
Yep.
And I'm just.
But now you're going to tell people?
I'm just telling you, it works really good. I did that today, and I'm feeling
tell us
really
what it
good
is?
about myself.
He can't tell, or then it's not good. But I do that all the time, and it's just silly little things that no one would ever know you did.
Right.
That actually happened to me on the way in.
I was mainly joking because I was telling you I did something nice, but that's all right.
No,
Somebody
we
gave
do
me
it.
their parking thing.
They did?
They said, wait a minute, I have another 2 hours left on it. Do you want it? And she gave me her little ticket
That's so
outside.
sweet.
That is
A
very
nice
nice.
lady outside.
That's nice.
It
That's
was really
perfect.
nice
You didn't
of
tell her
her.
you were Republican, obviously.
I don't. Do we have to declare that when we
Really?
meet people?
Do we have to go there? Can't we just be nice? Or do we have? Is there a litmus test to
So
be
wait,
nice?
okay, wait.
If you're
before
a
we-
Republican, you
before
can't
we
be
get-
nice to us. Is that
Right,
the litmus
that
test?
is the litmus. So we're going to have a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate.
Yeah.
Does that mean the rape culture is no longer in existence at the State House?
No, it will. No, I will. No, because
That's
okay. So
'cause
let
I'm
me
trying
tell
to figure
you
this all out.
what you just received as a gift from the New Hampshire voters is the most left-leaning progressive legislature that you have ever worked with and New Hampshire has ever seen. These people that have been elected
Yeah.
are free healthcare, free college, free everything, and they really don't know how they're going to pay for any of this.
Well, we can't pay for it. We just
Well,
have to.
this is
just
what they're going to do.
legislate
They're
it.
anti-Second Amendment all the way. They already have gun bills in.
I know.
They're higher taxes. They want an income tax. These aren't your normal Democrats that you think of that you've served with. The new people that have come in are the far, far left progressives that do not understand the Constitution or the country or what individual liberty means and why we fight for it. They want big government to take care of everybody while they steal from you and me. Or my husband, because I don't actually work.
I know that feeling.
And that's what they want. And that's why I think it's going to be more difficult, because I think their agenda is going to be so radical. I'm hoping that in the end that works in our favor. And in 2020, people have seen enough of that and they want us back.
Well, it depends on whether they see it. It's like for instance.
That's true, too.
And examples. When and I'm going to go national because the examples are so obvious. When Trump took office, when Obama took office, the first 2 years he was in office, all we heard on social media, on the morning shows and even the evening shows, was how absolutely gorgeous Michelle Obama was, right?
I must have missed those
I
shows.
missed-
Oh, they
too.
did always. It was,
We were too busy raising children to
Yeah,
be watching morning TV.
Or at the State House.
no, everything was about how beautiful she was. As soon as Trump took office, all they've done is attack his wife.
Well, we know there's the bias.
Well, I
and
know, but
no one can
what
say
I'm getting
there
at is the
isn't.
bias is so profound. People have no idea what Trump actually has done. It's like, for instance, the Obama got a Nobel Peace Prize, and he hadn't done anything.
Right.
He's actually, I think, started more wars or sent troops into more places than any place else. Helped destabilize the Middle East, which caused our guys from Benghazi to get killed.
But this segues into what you were talking about before we came on camera with the stories.
Yeah, just finish this. I'll be done. But
Got to get off his tirade.
I have to finish this tirade. But then Trump goes and works with the North Koreans, and they're actually they're taking the bombs out of the DMZ right now. I mean, this is so profound. My dad almost died there, and he was with people that did die there, and they're actually demilitarizing the demilitarized zone, and the press doesn't cover that because they're worried about some tweet he made. I mean, the press is. It doesn't matter. Trump could walk on water and he'd say, oh, he's afraid of the water. It doesn't make any difference what he does.
Just because he has an R behind his name.
I know, but I'm saying even on this...
Well, it's more than that. He betrayed half of the nation by not letting Hillary win. And he's going to pay the price for that until the day he dies.
Right.
But that goes into that segues into what you were talking about before we came out here about the news media and how they feed the people this information and the people just buy it.
Yeah.
They buy into it without doing their homework and research. And you had an article about that.
Oh yeah. There was a really great article. It was the thing is us three folks are pretty strong conservative Republicans. But we're honest brokers about what we believe. It's a articulatable positions we have. There are Democrats that are like that also. The problem is a lot of the Democrats that make the news, it's all about feelings and passion without any actual reason behind it. Anyway, these very Democrats with a lot of integrity were getting really upset the way they were seeing things go on with, especially in the gender studies and things like that. They're seeing a lot of articles come out that didn't make any sense, and so they decided to test the waters, and they sent out a bunch of articles to these for peer review, and a lot of them were accepted, and they were totally fabricated. One of the articles. A woman claimed one of the cool things they did when they did the names, when they sent these in for review, is they would use such common names that they couldn't do a quick Google search to determine whether or not it's a fake person or not, like Bob Smith or something. And anyway, supposedly this woman was at dog parks for a year at 3 different dog parks and studied dogs and the rape culture of dogs in dog parks, and did an entire paper on the rape culture at dog parks and how it was just totally fabricated but accepted.
And then we should train you like dogs. Is that what was the conclusion?
I think that
men should be trained like dogs.
Men should be trained like dogs as a result of this 1 year fabricated study, which was accepted.
Well, let's see. Sit. Oh, it worked.
Well, I'm house trained too. So. My wife doesn't agree with that, but
yeah. So they're not doing their due diligence. When I see an article, I usually check out 2 or 3 other sources to find out what's what, because there's so much misinformation, and some of those spoof sites are so good. Like, they're so good at telling a story that is so close to the truth that you have to look at, like, Babylon Bee, I think is the new one.
Great.
Oh my gosh, it is fantastic.
Yeah, it is wicked funny.
But sometimes someone shares a story and I start reading it and it's so close, like it could happen.
But
because the world is so crazy, like it could
is
happen.
crazy, yes.
But then I always check to make sure before.
And it's always good to check what the motivations of some of these authors, if they're true too.
Right. Oh, Babylon Bee, they're so good.
They're wicked funny.
I'll have to follow them on Twitter.
Oh yeah, they're really
seriously
good.
And everything is relevant. Like it's poignant. It's what's happening now, but they do a little spin on it.
Yeah, we've got in the next 2 years we've got like you say, the thing is and my point about the press is, yes, they're going to introduce some wicked radical stuff. The one people should really be watching out for are red flag laws. And a red flag law is...
It's already introduced. Deb Alshalip put it in. It's already been introduced. And it means that if I don't like you, I can call the police and say that I don't like you and they should come get your guns because I'm afraid of you.
Oh my goodness.
And so
Well,
that's what the red flag
They
laws
would
are.
probably have to say, well, Pam's been acting weird. What they did to a guy, I think it was Oregon.
But there's no due process. It just is someone's word or feeling that you're not safe and they know that you have firearms so they can come and take them.
This is awful. This is going to plug up our law enforcement when they should be out there fighting
Well, it
real
already
crime.
happened and somebody died as a result. And I don't. I think it
no.
was Florida actually. If someone else knows, they can either chime in or they can call in.
Yeah,
What's-
I think-
What's
yeah.
the call-in number?
I don't know.
603-640-3091. Is that right?
Sure looks like it.
what
Says
it
it
says
on the
there.
I
phone.
don't even know where you're seeing it, but
I think it was in. Are you new here? That's that's your phone number.
oh, thanks.
Just in case you forget.
And I
usually
think it
don't
was
call in
Florida.
while I'm
Somebody
here,
had
though.
called the police and said they were concerned about somebody
Yeah.
and they thought that he might harm himself. As a result, they went in to confiscate his firearms and he was shot and killed by the police.
Oh no.
So,
Well, the classic one was, I think, was Oregon, and there was a guy that is they came out like
incoming
into
call.
his-
See, it worked.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm like magic.
Press the button.
Wait, they usually tell me who it is. Wait, they usually tell me who's calling in
Oh.
on the screen. They have to do it there first.
All right,
right.
all right. Welcome to Rock Paper Hand Grenades. What's up?
Hey, Gary, how are you?
Good.
Who do we have the pleasure of
Good. Hey,
speaking
I
with?
was listening to a story about Trump and stuff in the media, and it's so true. I said, the problem is Trump is from New York, and people just don't know how to handle New Yorkers. His attitude is his attitude. And another analogy I heard the other day was, if you hire somebody to come out with your house to take the trash out, they're not going to be coming over smelling like roses and wine, They're going to definitely pack what they are. So, somebody gives them grief, hey, you're here to take the trash out. You got what you got. So that's all I need to say.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Drain the swamp.
You're welcome.
It's a good analogy, though.
That is interesting.
But so this guy from Oregon, I believe it was he had done some things like he came out into his lawn when he was in his underwear. I guess he might have had a drinking problem, maybe, and somebody checked on him. His house was kind of messy. Okay, so if you're going to start taking everybody's guns away that has a drinking problem, I think that's got to be 30, 40,000 people in New Hampshire alone. So anyway, so they looked at it and they came and took his guns. No due process.
No due
The whole
process.
Constitution, you cannot be deprived of liberty without due process.
And that's what a red flag law is.
And that's what a red flag.
Meanwhile,
But
so-
wait, let me
okay, go
just
ahead.
one other little caveat. So in other states where they've done the red flag law, they take the guns. I think it's Massachusetts, and depending on the local police, $20 a day for storage. So they took your guns, and in a month you owe $600 to the local police department to get a $200 gun back.
Wow.
That's undue burden on a law-abiding citizen who did nothing wrong.
Right.
Right, exactly.
And
To that
and
point.
they're coming up with these because of the recent mass shootings that we've had. But the reality is, in those situations, let's take Parkland, right? This young man sought help repeatedly. He called the police on himself. He asked for help. The school knew he was in trouble and they tried to get him committed. He could not get committed. And this was the result. So these aren't like
His mother had just died, too.
his mother just died, but he had a long history
Yeah.
of problems. And he actually called and asked for help. Like he was desperate for help and they wouldn't put him where he could be safe. And that also happened in Newtown. If you remember, the mother was trying to get the son
Yep.
taken out of the general population and put someplace where he could be safe and get help. And he killed her in the process of that. So this isn't like we need red flag laws to alert us to people that might be a danger. These people have been known dangers. They've sought out help. The person that just did the shooting recently, the police were called and they had someone come in that did a mental evaluation, said he was all set, and sent him on his way. So it's not like you have to go into someone's home and confiscate. These people are known to the police. They're known to mental health professionals, and they're asking for help. So why aren't they getting that? Why aren't we putting them out? And I know some people think it's mean to take people out of the general population, but there are some people that cannot be there until they're treated and they're safe to return.
Well, I think that the bill, and we know who put it in, the opposition. It's all well-meaning that we do want to protect people, and we do. I think Republicans stand for law enforcement and protecting everyone, from the military on the federal level down to our local police officers. And what this is going to do, the unforeseen, or what do you call it, unintended
consequences that we often see in bills.
We
right?
do, and guess what? They normally do manifest.
Oh,
And
yeah.
one of the manifestations here is you're talking about people getting taxed, more or less, paying fees for things that don't even cost that much, as well as what is this going to do to our law enforcement? That someone decides, maybe they're out of spite. I'm threatened, and go get their ex-boyfriends, ex-husbands, or wives.
Well, and some of the most
Weapons?
dangerous situations for our police are somebody who wants to take their own life. At some point, you have to let them make that, as a liberty person, right?
Yeah.
You have to let them make that decision on their own, because otherwise you're sending in people who get killed in the process of trying to save this person
Yeah.
that doesn't want to be saved, right? Again, they have probably seen someone from mental health,
Yep.
a mental health professional. It could be medication that they're on. We've seen that there are adverse side effects to some of these depression medications that they want to take their own lives. But I'm sure they've talked to mental health professionals before they get to that point. So why aren't we, again, getting them the help that they need?
We do. And didn't we increase funding in the budget?
did.
Yes, I thought we increased it substantially for mental health, because it's a serious issue, and we do need to fund that and help.
And that was
and
one
help
of the
our
lies that
citizens.
I think it was Stratum Dems told on social media, that we had withdrawn funds
Oh, no,
for opioid.
No, we
epidemic,
increased.
mental
we
health.
definitely did. Plus, we just got federal funds for the opioid epidemic.
Yep, we increased all of
Yes.
that funding, while we didn't increase property taxes. So
Yes, that's
Yeah, but I think
quite an accomplishment.
yeah,
Yeah, we actually did pretty good, but the problem is I don't think the general public is not going to hear some of the insanity that's going to go on up at the State House. I don't know how we accomplish making sure everybody knows what legislators are doing and who's voting for this, and
and that's-
because there is going to be some really whacked out
There-
stuff,
and there always is.
I will bet there will be legislation to make New Hampshire a sanctuary state.
And that might be the case.
no, you're joking. It's
I-
not.
you may be joking,
I'm
but
not joking.
absolutely-
I'm not really joking.
I don't think
I'm
that's gonna
laughing
show up
because
on
it's
the
so
Onion.
insane.
It is, and it's hard. And I got to ask this question: where does everyone get their news nowadays? Are people really that interested? And my take on it is a lot. And I use my friends sometimes as examples. Where do you get their news from? Many of them don't care, because you know what? Most people want to be left alone.
Yep.
They don't want the government in their lives. And so I don't know if they put their heads under the sand. They're too busy because we're busy working, or our husbands are working to take care of us. So where are people getting their news media from? And we need to go to those channels. We have a press room up at the State House, as you know. It used to be jam-packed. Now, how many people are in there? Because no one reads the newspapers anymore.
Yeah.
It's a headline society. So they read
Yeah.
a headline, they swipe, they go
Twitter,
on to the
yeah.
next story,
Yeah.
right?
100 yeah.
Right.
How many
and we are
characters?
terrible as Republicans. We are terrible at messaging, and that's something that all these conversations that have been happening since last Tuesday. That's one of the things we need to do. We've got Ray Buckley, who I know watches your show, by the way, because I did your show
Oh my
with Lisa
gosh.
one night, and he got right onto Twitter and trashed us. So hi, Ray.
Yes.
If you don't know, he is the chairman of the New Hampshire Democrats,
Oh,
and he's
gosh.
a very nasty person.
Oh.
So
Oh, wait, can I tell you? Quick story.
Okay.
One of my favorite state legislators of all time was a Democrat from Manchester, Paul Bassard. Okay, as a
Manchester has some great,
yeah.
great legislators.
as a
just saying.
Christian, Paul Bassard is like the poster boy for what a Christian should be. He's just that nice. Firefighter, so he goes up to the State House. I think it was 2002 to 2003 and 4, and he's a firefighter, so he's a union guy. So he's a Democrat. He's always been a Democrat. He goes up there. He goes, he's just floored by how liberal everybody was. And he says, he told me after about 2 months, he says, I think I'm in the wrong party. But anyway, one of the most rotten things I ever did in the state legislature was
Confession time.
Oh, this is
Uh-oh.
great. No, this is wonderful.
You are
right?
live.
No going back now, Gary.
This is so evil. So I'm sitting in the back of the room, and there was a bill to define marriages between a man and a woman. Ray Buckley is about, 10 feet away on the right-hand side, and I'm talking to Paul. and I hear some guy walk up to Ray Buckley, and I think he was a state rep at the time, and say, I'm so-and-so from the Times. And then he interviews him. So the guy's walking by me, and I'm saying, you're a newspaper reporter, right? He goes, yeah. I says, well, this is Representative Paul Bissard. He's one of the co-sponsors of this bill. I'm sure you want to hear both sides of the argument, right? And he goes, oh, yeah, I do. And so he introduces himself. He's from the Gay Times of Boston. I just walked away because basically I threw Paul under the bus, and it was just super funny, but it was really rotten. I thought it was super
Did
funny.
he forgive you?
Of course he did.
Yeah,
he was
he
the
did.
best Christian ever.
I
he
told
said.
you he's the best Christian ever.
If he
He's
forgave
such a,
you.
He's such a wonderful guy.
Well, you talk about
put him in
the
the firing
unintended
line.
consequences. So we had a conversion therapy bill that got a lot of
remember
press,
that.
right?
Yes.
So the problem with this bill was nobody wants. This stemmed from something that happened out of state where two brothers were actually killed by their parents when they were trying to do conversion therapy on them in some cult, right? So nobody wants to see children hurt for any reason, and especially shouldn't be at the hands of their parents. And it shouldn't be, this conversion therapy shouldn't be used for those purposes at all. So we're in agreement for that. The bill itself was so vague and far-reaching that it didn't qualify enough who was a counselor. So this actually spread into, it could be your minister or your priest. And I had a counselor that reached out to me and said, this bill, if a minor comes to them for counseling and says, I'm confused about my sexual orientation, I'm not sure, they can only counsel and be supportive in the way that directs them to being homosexual. So a counselor said to me, I have often had kids come to me that were raped or victims of incest, and they question their sexuality, but they're not gay. They're heterosexual, but because the other person was of the same sex, they wonder.
It screws them up.
And
yeah.
now, he said, I can't take those kids because I can't counsel them in the way that best suits them and does the least amount of harm. I can only counsel them in a certain direction, or I can get sued or lose my license. And I had another counselor that reached out to me and said that she didn't even understand the bill. I tried to explain it to her. She didn't even understand it. She said, I wouldn't take LGBT youths because of this bill. I would be afraid because I don't understand it enough. So the unintended consequence of that is these kids who are often have a higher percentage rate of suicide will not be able to get the counseling that they need because we've just made it difficult for these
put a wall up.
counselors
Yeah.
to feel comfortable counseling them in the way that suits them the best, right? So because I voted against that bill, and one of the people that was running against me was the vice chair for the Stonewall Dems, which is the LGBT group of the Democrats. We've got log cabin Republicans at the LGBT for our side. They said I was a bigot, and Ray Buckley went crazy with that. Just, I hate children. I wanted these kids tortured. And
Oh my gosh,
there's
you're
no-
trying to save children.
right, but they don't want to hear the unintended consequences or the reasons why I voted against the bill. Because there's always a reason why, right? You don't just look at a headline and say, that's a great bill, let's go. That's why we have
Well, some
hearings.
people do.
And some of these things came out in the hearing. So we got so beat up. And you saw when Eddie Edwards did his commercial where he was lifting weights, because that's been a big part of his life, right? He was a competitive weightlifter,
Right.
and he did a commercial and was talking about how that helped him with discipline throughout his life, because he had a very difficult childhood. If you know his story, his grandmother brought him up, and that taught him discipline. And so they took that and they turned that around and said that he was a bigot against Chris Pappas because Chris Pappas is openly gay. And it was
How
saying
does
that
weightlifting necessarily
because he
equate-
said he was strong and Chris was weak, so that meant that all gay men are weak. That's what they did with
That's
this,
obviously,
right?
they were obviously racist.
So, but we don't fight back. They hit us with all this stuff, and well, that's what I said too. And that must mean you're racist because you're coming against Eddie Edwards, right?
Right, yeah.
But they hit us with all this stuff, and we do not fight back the way that we should. And I think some of it is because we don't want to be the Ray Buckleys of the world. Don't want to be nasty and get into the mud and do those things. But we need to be stronger and stand up for ourselves more, I think, as a party and come back with our messaging.
I agree.
Well, possibly, but the thing is as
Not possibly. We
No,
both
let's-
agreed. You're the man in the room. That means you go along with
Excuse
what
me,
we
yeah, that's
said.
right.
Remember that first conversation about training?
No, the the thing is in some regards we're playing with our arms tied behind our backs, because as a Christian, it clearly says, "Thou shalt not bear false witness." Period. It doesn't mean thou shalt not bear false witness unless thou art trying to get elected. It says, "Thou shalt not bear false witness." So making false allegations like they did against you is perfectly okay for them.
And you weren't the only one I
Oh,
saw.
I know, I
I
wasn't.
saw a
I know
piece
I
today.
wasn't.
I was horrified that anyone would print that. It was so horrific. The person had never run for office and was being accused of supporting certain things. I won't go into the details, but it was pretty sad that.
Who's the person?
Like I said, I won't go into details. The thing is we don't have to lie or stretch the truth. I mean, when one of our friends put out there that if you want an income tax, vote Democrat, because 97% of all Democrats between, 2010 and I don't remember the dates, voted for an income tax.
Yep.
That's a fact. You can't refute
Well, they started
that.
lobbying about that over the summers. About
Yeah.
they had this thing with Andrew Volinsky, and he went around trying to tell people that we don't invest in education enough, and we have to. So they laid the foundation for the income tax
there's
over the
a
summer.
huge lie that more money gets better education. If that were the case, let's go down to D.C. and every student in those D.C. schools should be going to Harvard and Princeton and Yale
New
and
Jersey. I think
Stanford.
New
and
Jersey is up
Jersey.
to $20,000 per student or
Exactly.
greater, and
So
their test scores are way lower than New
There's
Hampshire.
definitely a disconnect there, and people need to get involved in their local school districts. I understand we're all busy. We all have, two incomes and the like, but raising your children is the most important thing. The most important thing, because that's the future of our country.
Yep.
And so you better make sure they're getting the right education. When they took cursive away from my kids, I taught them at home.
Yep.
That's what you have to do. If they're not teaching math, they're using everyday math, and your kid's not learning
I
it.
homeschool my kids for math. They do Saxon math because I chose the school they're going to because they did Saxon.
Mm-hmm.
And then they changed it.
They did what?
Saxon math.
Don't worry about it.
Saxon math. It's like old school
There's
math.
Singapore
it's probably
math,
what you had when
there's
you grew
everyday
up.
No, I'm
math.
thinking of Saxon math. They must draw.
The man's name was John Saxon.
And I'm just thinking of large broadswords and fighting.
Saxons?
No,
Yeah.
the man's name was John Saxon, and he created this way of teaching math.
Sure he did.
Oh, Eric.
Great Ways Khan Academy,
Eric,
too,
I'm
which
so
you
glad I
might not
sat
even
in
know
for you
about.
tonight. But it's a very foundational way to teach math. It
Yes.
sort of goes back over, it goes back around. So these kids really are engrossed in what they're doing, and it really they absorb so much
and
more.
they understand the process versus just bringing down zeros and zeros, because the everyday math, sorry, we're way off on the topic here.
But now you get Mom's Talking Education.
Yes, and it's important when they're saying, well, this is how you have to do it, and my daughter's getting all confused at having to bring all these numbers. I go,
No, do you have the lattice?
what are
The
you
lattice
doing?
math?
Yeah, I think that's what it was. It was everyday math. And I was going, what is this? I go, no, this is how you do it. I taught my daughter in 5 minutes or less how to do division and how to carry the one.
And when
do
the Common Core math
multiplication.
came in, it became more about
my gosh.
explaining. And I've got it. My
Or
younger son,
remember
Seamus,
the guestimating? Like, guesstimate this.
Yes, yes.
Wait a minute. There's black and whites here. Either it's right or it's wrong. It's not, well, maybe. I mean,
Right.
So
So
on the
Seamus
education
is very
thing,
he does a lot of math in his head.
Yeah.
And he's,
some kids can do that.
he's got my husband's math genes because I'm a failure at math.
Okay.
But he can do it in his head. So with Common Core math, he had to write out. So if it said 7 plus 7, and he would say 14, he would have to make 7 circles, and then 7 circles, and then 14 circles. And it used to infuriate him and make him
ridiculous
so
way to
angry. And then when I put
Wait,
them in a
wait,
charter
why
school,
Why would you have 7 circles and 14 circles? What?
7 plus 7 is 14. So 7 circles
Tricky
plus
little
7
math
circles,
thing,
then
addition.
14 circles. So it wouldn't matter if he just knew it. He would still have to draw it all out.
yeah.
And then he'd have to,
Well, when you
as
get
they
into
got
algebra
older,
and stuff, it's probably good that you can actually draw it out.
when
Well,
they
you
got
have
older,
to.
they'd
But
have
just
to
simple
explain
math. I don't know why
why,
you'd have to. Yeah, I know.
right?
Yeah, once in a while you should explain how you got there, but
Without a doubt, you should, especially when you get to longer equations and algebra and pre-calc. You have to. There's no way,
Yeah.
because you have to work through the problem. But we're talking about basic foundations that these children learn in
my dad
your
could do
grammar school.
calculus in his head.
He was brilliant.
He was
Nah.
My grandfather was an architect, and he could do. He wrote a book on the metric system, and he could do algebra so well. And when I called him up for help, he would get so frustrated with me because I just didn't get it, and it was so easy for him. And he's like, I don't understand why you don't understand. I'm like, it's I have my mother's math genes. She didn't get her father's math.
Everybody's so different like that. Anyway, for me, it's always been spelling. My grandson's in the other room there, and every time I get a word that can be a very simple word, and I won't remember. It just doesn't compute.
It doesn't. And you know what's interesting is because you learn different, and the teacher should be able to teach those kids the way they learn. Some kids learn by touching, very tactile. Others, like you said, just looking at it. Oh, yep, I got it. Some people by listening, and the teacher should have the ability to teach the way that kid learns.
So we undid some of the Common Core. So I put in a bill.
Oh, you mean that everyone's taught this way and get it or lose it?
Well, what happened was when the Common Core came in, all the standards got stronger, more rigorous. They would call them more rigorous, even down to kindergarten. So when we got kindergarten funding for all-day kindergarten, a lot of the teachers felt like it would give them more space in their day to bring back play and the other things and still hit these standards, and it didn't happen. They just ramped up the standards again. So last year I put in a bill for play-based kindergarten that required them to use play to teach the kids, which gives the teachers the room to teach kids individually, gives the kids room to be who they are and work in their own way at their own speed, and to socialize and learn how to work with other kids as well, which is a big piece of what was missing when we decided that kids had to learn these rigorous standards.
What's always bothered me, though, is when we go up to the State House, at around 1 o'clock, we recess the legislature, right? And every time I'd go outside and I'm looking for the bouncy house or something for recess, and there's never anything. It's nothing.
You got to go to Tandy's. That's where all the fun is.
I wouldn't know that.
Tandy's is...
You would too.
You
Oh, no, you
I
always went to the Chinese restaurant.
I love that Chinese
Oh,
restaurant.
yeah, we had the
tea house.
the HRA
It's just-
luncheons.
It started, I think in 2009 we started going,
Yeah.
and it just continued. I always went to the Chinese. And that's like my once a week or whatever it is, Chinese food. You can't eat that stuff all the time.
No.
So one of my mentors, since I started up there, was Paul Mirsky.
Yes.
Okay, I love Paul Mirsky,
The-
right?
the
And he's such
fame.
and this is kind of a contradiction of who he is, because he's so articulate and intellectual and stuff. And so you think of him as only being logical, except I sat down and I got there before at this table, the round table, before him, and I had my back to the wall. The only seat left was a seat with its back to the dining room. And I looked at him, I could tell he was super uncomfortable, like wicked uncomfortable, like he was not going to enjoy eating his food. So I said, Paul, you want to switch seats? He goes, yeah, would you?
Everyone has their little quirks.
I know.
And I'll tell you,
but
the
it's just
challenge of
funny.
eating with people at the State House is that you've got so many veterans that they all want to have their back to the wall,
Yeah.
right?
Wow.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
like Larry Gagne, he
Yeah.
he wants to always have his back to the wall. So when you're eating with veterans, like, you're protected. They have their back to the wall, but they're watching the door for you. They're watching your back, right?
Yeah, I know. It's a pretty
You need a
reason-
long table. Lined up. Like Jesus' table, the Last Supper.
Yeah, nobody actually face to face. Everybody's like, yeah, but it was super cool. It was wicked funny. So what do we do differently? Now, part of the problem we had this election, to me, is completely outfunded.
That's
the
a
lady
big
that
issue.
Ruth, what's her last name?
Ward?
No.
The senator?
Yeah, Ruth Ward in my district. The woman, this young lady that was running against her, Jen, she had money from Bette Midler. I was told, I haven't really double checked it, there was just so much money that got flooded into the Democratic Party for this election from out of state.
Oh, there was so much money from, what's his name, Steyer? That
Tom
they got
Steyer.
the next generation.
Well, they realized
they were
it's-
going to the college
well,
campuses and literally knocking on
They
doors
were.
inside.
They were.
Yeah.
And they have the money to do that. And I've heard everywhere from 3 to 1 to upwards of 6 to 1. We were outspent. And I'm not going to play the blame game. They outspent us. We lost.
When they saw Eddie was creeping up, I think he had a 2% margin, which is within
Yep.
the margin of error.
Right.
Nancy Pelosi and crew put in over, I think it was $280-something thousand in the last week of the campaign.
And you think about that, what $280,000 can do in New Hampshire versus $280,000 in a New York State seat or a California
Right.
seat. you can go a long ways with $200,000
And here's the thing,
here.
for the people that are, you keep saying we need to get the money out of politics, as long as you let the money win, the money will be there.
Exactly.
Right?
And the people who are saying we need to get it out are the ones who are using it and winning.
Right.
And, good for them that they can raise that kind of money, but we need to be able to do that too.
Do you think it would? I was thinking about that because I think that's true. Most people want to see less money in politics. Would it be reasonable or would it be constitutional to introduce legislation to make sure that people who run for office in New Hampshire only get money from New Hampshire?
Well, so here's the problem.
Can you do
This
that?
is how they get around it, even if you did that. They don't get the money directly often. It's a PAC that comes in and spends the money on the advertising against their opponent. Not
Right.
even necessarily for them, but against their opponent. And so it's not coming to you. So even though you say, I don't want more than, what do you spend on a campaign? $1,000.
Not even. I actually
Yeah, there you go.
I spent
Right.
950 and I received 918.
Right. So, even if you say,
And
I am only going to spend this much, you've got all this out-of-state money.
Granite
that's
State Progress
coming
will come in and hit you. Act Blue can come in and hit you. Because how are you going to stop
We
that?
actually did get hit a couple times. And it was
I've
funny
heard a
because
lot.
it's obviously from out of state. Because they were talking about, basically if I get elected, I was going to destroy Social Security.
Yeah, you have a
Which-
lot to do with that on the federal
Right.
level.
They did,
Yeah,
but they did a lot of
running.
that. They did mailers that said a lot of those kinds of things that
Right.
we have no control over. They have nothing to do with the state
Right.
legislature.
Right.
But did people buy into it and
Back
believe
to
it?
people not knowing knowing civics.
Call
Right.
call the candidates, have a conversation with
yeah,
them,
but-
see what's
right.
going.
Is
This
this
is New
true?
Hampshire. Like we
Yeah.
answer our phones, right? We don't have staff.
That's what we do, and you probably
We
know
are
your
our staff.
representative. If, well,
Right.
you hope you do.
Right. But he was actually going, he had kids in the dorms knocking on dorm rooms to bring people out to vote. Like, there were a lot of lines that were crossed.
Did you know that there was actually puppies? They
Are we
provided.
back to the dog park?
Oh, wait a minute. Are we
No.
back to fake news?
No. UNH provided. This is on Channel 9. I read this on an article
No
on
way.
Channel 9. They provided puppies to help comfort the people coming from UNH to vote.
Okay, so
Why would you
listen.
need comfort voting? You're right.
Well,
These
if-
kids
if-
are not going to be able to function in society. Oh my gosh.
I mean, we had, when my dad was in
I
the
would like the
Chosin
puppy,
Reservoir
but-
when he's 19, freezing to death and being shot at by North Koreans and Chinese. A few years earlier, there were 19-year-old boys in water soaked with the blood of their fellow soldiers charging the beaches of Normandy. And these kids need puppies just to vote?
So
We,
they're
we,
all,
or
we are
comfort
we
rooms.
are lost.
but they're
We're
also
soft.
the
We're
kids
soft.
that are so angry all the time. If you watch like Steven Crowder or Ben Shapiro or any of these young conservatives that are out there, they're absolutely abused anytime they go out in
Yep.
public, and they try to shut down the conversation. They don't want them to talk at all. They talk over them. They call them racist, bigots, the whole
Right.
thing.
Yeah,
You know,
let's
Ben
go to-
Shapiro's been
let's-
called
right.
an anti-Semite, and he's Jewish.
He's Jewish. Go figure.
Right? And they just want to stop the conversation. You can't have a say in it. They don't want to hear your side. They're just going to shut you down, yell at you, call you names.
Call you names.
And meanwhile, they need safety pins and safe spaces. We're the ones that they're attacking.
I know.
You know, it's so crazy.
Did you see the attack on Candace Owen? One of my heroes in the last couple of years has been Candace Owen.
She's so fantastic.
She's just so great, and she's been attacked, and they corral around her and attack her and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Blow horns in her ear and stuff like that.
They call her racist. They say that she's an Uncle Tom. They say that she's a token black person. They're so awful to her
Right.
because she doesn't fall in line. Dan Innes went through the same thing because he is an openly gay man who's a Republican who served as senator, and the Stonewall Democrats and Ray Buckley abused him. They put a lot of money against him. He didn't win his seat.
No, he didn't.
Because they feel like he betrays them by being a Republican and not voting Democrat. So they just completely abused
Well,
him.
Yes,
don't
because
we
how
see
you-
that across the board? If you do not
Fall
toe
in
the
line,
line,
right?
like the woman in Coas County, we saw that the chair of the Coas County.
Yeah.
And she wouldn't toe the line and would not support Senator Woodburn, and so they
Because Senator Woodburn abused her.
Well, it was
supposedly.
ex-girlfriend,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
It's all accusations.
yeah.
So if rather than this, the women's movement of stand up for,
Too.
yeah, I hate
Please,
that.
as a conservative woman,
Right.
you know, we're very much treated that same way. We are pro-life people, so we are anti-woman.
We're
We
anti-woman
are
because I
abused
don't
by the
want-
Democrats
yeah.
because we're Republican women and we're outwardly conservative. Like,
Yeah, but if you're
We betrayed all womankind because we don't lockstep with liberal women.
right.
And that's not right. We have individual
wait a second.
thoughts.
So if you're anti-woman because you're pro-life,
Yes.
they're pro-woman because they're in favor of killing unborn children,
Who-
but half of those
Are
unborn
girls.
children are girls. So
Mm-hmm.
they're in favor of killing unborn girls, and they're pro-woman.
Well, let me.
Gary,
also, let
why
me
are
ask
you putting logic into this?
Who bears the scars of abortion?
The women do.
Physical and emotional scars. Who is abortion great for? Men who don't have to take any responsibility for the child that no longer is there.
Well,
No,
I was
no
gonna
offense,
say,
I know it's not you, but so when you think about what is really pro-woman is supporting a woman who's pregnant and bringing a new life into the world. That is pro-woman.
Right.
Abortion is very harmful to women.
Yeah, but I don't think the calculus is whether or not men are big gain from it. It's because it's a lot of people getting very wealthy off of abortion. They make a lot of money. If you've seen any of those videos where they actually dissect children in the womb and sell
No,
the
I
body
can't.
parts.
Oh God,
I
don't
can't.
tell me that. That's make my stomach turn.
But it started
That's true.
from a woman and men that worked around her because they wanted to. It actually has a very racist background. They wanted to make sure that black women didn't have babies and poor women
Extremely
didn't have
racist.
babies. They
Yep.
did not. These were not people that they
Eugenics.
wanted to reproduce and have more of them in society.
Margaret Sanger, what a
Yes.
lovely woman.
Nope.
She actually went, Hitler was pretty impressed with her too. I think she went over to Germany. She was, this is one of the sick things. For people out there, you really have to be super careful about what church you belong to. Super careful about what church you belong to. To give you an example, Margaret Sanger, when she's trying to get people to encourage black women to abort their children, she knew that the secret was to get into the churches. So she started hiring black pastors and people like that to encourage women to do this. And I think it was, I don't know how many years ago, I think it was roughly 2014, in New York City, more children were aborted than born, black children.
That's sad. And you know what? I understand back in 1972 when we didn't have technology. But
And you
now,
didn't know.
and we didn't know what was in the womb. We know now. We can see it.
Not only that, but there's so many options for birth control now. It's not like what
Exactly.
it used to
There
be.
is.
And there's so
It's-
much more knowledge, and people talk about sex more than they used to. I mean, growing
It's
up, you know,
fairly open now.
I grew up Catholic. You didn't really talk about that, right? But now it's pretty open with parents and kids, and we talk about it because we don't want them to be on the the other side of that.
And we want to be responsible parents because
Right.
you're right. Back when I grew up, your mom didn't talk to you about those things, and you learned it from your older siblings
book. My
a
mother
book,
gave me a book.
or your friends, and you did. And for what it's worth, you did learn, and you knew don't have sex or you're going to have a baby. I mean,
Right.
that's basically what it
You
was.
knew the basics.
But now you're. But we know it's in the womb now, and what has happened is our ethics have not kept up with technology, and I think that's a bigger issue when we
ethics
start
are
Also, I
talking
think
about
that
abortion.
sex used to be more protected and more intimate, and now they've society had
Well-
changed the way that we think about sex to be
Right.
like it's just
It's-
about pleasure and anyone should do it and it doesn't matter.
It's not
and the
necessarily
intimacy
about
has
love.
been removed
Right.
from that.
And
Well,
not to say-
the whole relationship has changed since the 70s. When prior to that, you got married, you had kids, and your purpose as parents was to raise children. It wasn't about you anymore.
Right.
Okay, so then they went to the me generation where
Exactly.
it was about me. Am I happy? Well, I'm not happy, so obviously the kids aren't happy. So if I get a divorce, maybe I can pursue my happiness and the kids will be happier. Well, that didn't turn out. The rates of suicide jumped through the roof.
They're still
and the
jumping
crime
through the
rate
roof.
jumped through the roof. And so what Republicans did is lock all those children that were out of control, because they're out of control because their family life is junk. And that's, you were talking about the SAT scores in D.C., okay? In 1965, in the black community, 75% of those children were raised in intact homes. 75%. Okay? They started the war on poverty in 1965, which meant handing money over to people to help raise their children out of wedlock.
All with great intentions.
Oh, I don't think so. I really, no, I'm sorry.
all right, I just
I
think-
totally disagree. I believe that most people today, if you ask most Democrats, they will believe that it was good intentioned. But I don't think the architects, I think they knew they were enslaving people. So you had the war on poverty, you had no-fault divorce. By the year 2000, 75% of the children in Washington, D.C. were brought up in broken homes. And that's why you can spend as much money as you want on their school, they're still not going to do well because they don't have functional lives.
Right,
It has
until mom and
nothing
dad
to do
are
with
involved.
what color their
Right.
skin is.
Oh, we
The
know
skin
that.
color is irrelevant.
And the crime rates increase incredibly after that too.
Yeah,
in these
because
neighborhoods.
it's an aggregate thing. In other words, if back in the 60s, if you had one kid that was like messed up, well, it's one kid amongst 30 in a classroom. You can deal with it, okay? But if 75% of those kids are messed up in a classroom, you lost complete control.
Yeah.
It's
Even the kids that aren't messed up are going to be
I hear
affected.
you, and it is going to all that back to the education. It is parental involvement, whether you're a single parent or dual parents, however it's working. You've got to stay involved with your kids, and that's the biggest problem.
It is.
And maybe in the welfare society said you don't have to worry about this anymore. We'll take care of you, and they went off and did their thing. I don't know.
Well, part of the problem is like you say it's bad for. She blamed us guys, but.
Well, it's because we didn't train you right.
You need to go to the dog park.
I know. I got to go back to the.
We
dog
have to
park.
go back to the dog park now, don't we?
Shock collar.
Oh, I've actually often said I wanted to get one of those for my children.
Do you remember the Cheers episode where they gave the one guy a shot collar for saying
No.
stupid things?
But anyway, the thing is, once
But
you
wouldn't it be great if you did have you had the
Yeah.
remote and you could zap certain people?
If they said something that was totally wrong, and just like shock therapy for your spouse.
that would be unpleasant for me.
Right? Or your kids. Get back in line. Not a big shock.
No,
Call Tia,
you
just
don't
a
want
little.
to do
a warning
that.
I don't want to hurt them. Just a little
Oh,
reminder
yes.
Yeah.
to walk the right path.
But the thing is, in the 70s, when you went through abortion basically on demand, you're telling young men, it's nothing. It's just flesh. She
Right.
gets an abortion, big deal. So what? So you've completely cheapened the relationship between a man and a woman.
You devalued the life of that child.
You've devalued the life of the child. You've devalued that relationship, and sex became, instead of something that was supposed to be intimate, and God intended it to be intimate, to something that's supposed to be casual by today's standards, which it never is. It still affects people emotionally. It's not. It is not just a casual thrill. It affects people. It affects the men too. You have a lot of men that are pretty messed up by this whole process.
Well, it's interesting. Now we're off on another little tangent here, but
No, we never do that on this show.
I was talking with, I guess I was lamenting to my daughters that the whole idea of courtship is gone with our children because of technology. That it used to be, the guy called and you waited for him to call. I mean, that the whole process of waiting for them to call and getting to know each other.
And growing up, we had one phone in the house.
Yes.
So you had,
Yes.
and no one answered the phone during
Right.
dinner.
And you had to go around the corner with the long
the
cord
long
to talk
cord.
privately because there's only three.
It would
Yeah.
wind
And your
itself
brothers
back
li-
up.
Yep.
And your brother's listening. On
Oh,
the
your
other
brother
line.
tries to listen in and you scream, get out the phone! But that's how it was. But it's more the fact that there was a courtship there. But now with technology, and I tell you, there's a lot of great things about technology as we're all in touch with everyone around the world. But in terms of children having this courtship and learning how to develop a relationship with someone over
And
a period of
communicate.
time. And communicate. I mean,
Because
this
how many
face to
times you
face.
texted somebody and then
You realize,
went back
oh,
later and
boy.
went, oh, that's not what I meant. Like, that didn't come out right.
No,
because
no,
It
no.
sounds
your
terrible.
inflection isn't in what you texted.
Right. It's up here, but it doesn't come out there.
Right.
And our
I've
kids have
had,
lost that.
Things with my friends where we just text each other quickly, and then I realized, like, I just offended them, and I didn't mean to because in my quick text, I sound short and I sound whatever, and it doesn't have the same inflection when you call someone and say, "Hey, Gary, I can't make the show tonight," or if I just text and say, "Can't do it,"
Exactly.
And these kids do the shortcuts. It's all shortcuts. It's not even
right.
full words.
HBU, yeah. LOL. It's like it took me a while. What was HBU?
But there
HBU,
is
what's
something
HBU?
to having
RN right
a
now.
conversation and hearing the voice on the
wait,
phone.
Wait, I gotta learn this. What's
What?
HBU?
How about you? RN is right now.
Right now, yeah. HB,
How about you is HBU.
How about you, not how about you.
Right,
See,
we've
so
even
they're going to
shortened
learn to write
words.
bout instead of
So
about.
I've insisted to my children we cannot talk in text language. It's just I forbid that.
Right.
You can't say HBU.
But it is such. Remember, like
saying
having like your
LOL
first
sounds
boyfriend
wicked
and being on the
stupid,
phone,
too.
be like, "You hang up, no, you
You
hang
hang
up,
up.
no,
I
you
know.
hang up."
That
Like
whole-
they're not gonna.
It was so much fun.
You stop
I mean, it
texting.
was.
No, you stop texting.
Right, well, and that's what it is. And if they don't respond right away to a text, oh, they're mad at me. Oh, something's up. Why didn't they respond right away?
Right, it's
and
stressful,
It's this instant
right?
gratification.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
But
so-
they get all keyed
did
up
we
and
cover?
stressed out about
Hey,
that.
it's the hour's almost up. Did we actually cover anything?
A lot.
We
took
did.
dogs, dog parks,
Dog parks.
Education, children.
Shock collars.
news, media. How it's
Yeah.
how we need to communicate our message
Yes.
better as Republicans because we've got a strong.
We
good,
actually
positive
we should have a
message.
big powwow about that because we got to get a lot better. Because I think if the general public knew half of the garbage they tried to put there, and maybe they'll find out these 2 years. I don't know.
So I have a solution for all of it. So there has to be truth in advertising, right? So we need to extend that to political campaigns.
No, you can't.
And
You
we
can't.
need to find them every time that they lie.
Nope,
And
you
that
can't
money
do
goes to
that.
the education system.
Freedom of speech is so important, and political freedom of speech is that much more important.
But
So-
but
agree.
First
Let's not shut
Amendment,
people
the
down.
First Amendment also comes with a responsibility. And there are laws against
All the amendments come with responsibility.
right, and there are laws against slander
That's
unless you're running
unless
for
you're
office.
running
Right,
for
unless
office.
you're running for office.
So for people who might not know, if I accuse Pam of something falsely, she can sue me for slander. Now, if she's running for office or a politician, she not
different.
only has to prove that it was not true, she has to prove that I knew it wasn't true.
Right.
So that I
thought
did it
police.
deliberately to.
We have a lot of thought police out there now. I mean, maybe they'll help me. They know what I'm thinking.
Yes, there's a lot of that going around. They know what
Yes.
you're thinking.
Yes.
Yeah, I
They
don't.
judge you on what you're thinking.
Yes, they do.
There was actually someone that tweeted that out. It was like, we know, this was from a Democrat. Someone said, like, they were defending somebody, and they said, we know, what you think we know. I was like, oh my God. So now we're just guilty because they think they can read our minds.
Yes.
And I think that's what that
That's
meant.
probably true. That's probably true. I mean, there's not much, not a lot of reading going on up this one.
No,
No, it doesn't take a lot.
Well, this was fun.
that was fun.
Pam Tucker, I love you. Thank you for coming all the way back
West.
out west.
With my
Victoria,
chopped liver.
I wasn't done yet. Thank you, dear.
Oh, anytime.
Thanks for coming around, just a couple
Anytime.
blocks away.
I always have a good time coming on here.
Yes, good to see you both.
Okay,
I
guys.
have to come on someday when Eric is here.
Yes.
Well,
As the
that-
guest.
People are going to start thinking we're one and the same because we're never in the same place at the same time.
Well, you both have the
We do have the hair.
Yeah, you
we have
both
the
do have
locks.
long hair,
Yes.
but his hair is a lot longer than yours.
A lot longer
longer
than mine.
than yours.
Yes.
It's true.
Many women are jealous of his hair.
His hair is prettier than mine. It's a fact.
Hey, we'll see you guys.
Bye. Thank you.